Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our Celebration of Life Pet Memorial event. I'm Michelle Leifer, the director of the Usdan Institute for Animal Health Education at the Schwarzman Animal Medical Center. Tonight's event will be recorded, and we'll send out a link to the recording tomorrow in case you want to watch it again or share it with others. This evening, we come together to celebrate the pets who have brought so much joy and love into our lives. Each of you has your own unique story and a deep connection with your pet, and it's these connections that make this event so meaningful. Seeing the photos and reading the messages you shared for our slideshow was deeply moving. I want to thank Kimberly Young, our education coordinator, for putting together this beautiful tribute. Here's a brief overview of tonight's event. We'll begin with our three speakers, followed by a candle lighting ceremony, and then we will close with the slideshow. If you'd like to take part in our candle lighting ceremony, please have a candle ready to light in memory of your beloved animal companion. The chat box will be disabled during the event, but if you're looking to connect with others who understand what you're going through, I encourage you to explore our pet loss support program led by Jamie Cohen, AMC's veterinary social worker, whom you'll hear from tonight. You can find more details about this program at amcny.org/social work. We'll also include that link in the follow-up email that will go out tomorrow. So now, our first speaker this evening is Dr. Alexandra van der Woerdt. Dr. van der Woerdt is a board-certified veterinary ophthalmologist who has been with AMC since 1994. She leads our ophthalmology service and also serves as the director of postgraduate education. Dr. van der Woerdt, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
All right, thank you. I guess it's time for me to speak. Okay, thank you, Michelle. All
Yes,
right,
thank you.
thank you for the introduction and welcome everybody. This is the first time I'm doing this, so bear with me. But anyway, I've been a veterinary ophthalmologist at the Animal Medical Center for 30 years, which is quite some time actually, if you think what can happen in 30 years. And during those 30 years, I have met many, many amazing pets and their owners. And what is one of the fun thing about being at a place for a long time, you actually get to follow people and you get to follow their pets. Like I remember it's not too long ago where an elderly Cocker Spaniel came in my room and the owner told me that 12 years ago I had fixed a cherry eye in her dog, in that exact same dog. So it's kind of fun. Or sometimes what happens is I see people and I've fallen with their pets for a number of years, and at some point of time, every life comes to an end. And then I may not see them again for a couple of years, and they come back to me with their new puppy. So that's just really a lot of fun. And I have just met so many amazing dogs and owners over the years, and some of them make you just laugh because very vividly remember this big golden retriever, happy as could always be, always wagging his tail. The one thing we always had to make sure, as soon as he entered the room, we would put the trash cans way high up because he would make a dive into it and pick out every single paper towel that he could possibly find. And if we weren't careful, he would like eat them. And so there's like dogs that makes you smile like that. And then there's also, of course, dogs that just really have amazing capabilities. Like I remember this one dog that the owner told me says like, I could tell that she was not well. And at some point in time, she told me that she was suffering from a brain tumor and that her dog actually, for a couple months before the diagnosis was made, kept growling at a certain part of her head. And she had been like sent to psychiatrists to explain her symptoms. And finally she told when somebody said something is wrong with my head because my dog keeps growling at this one specific spot. And sure enough, they found a brain tumor after that. I also very distinctly remember this little white dog. It was just a very cute, sweet little thing. And it was just basically by the side of this quadriplegic woman at all times, would just never leave her side. So a lot of these animals are just really, really special. And then there's, of course, these animals, I mean, if you look at them on the outside, there's nothing special to them. They have no special talents, but they're just amazing dogs. They're just part of our lives and they go through our lives. And, they live to be 15 years. And if you think back, what all happens in these 15 years? I mean, there's so many life events that may have happened during these times. So that's just all what I see. That's really part of the amazing things of being a veterinarian, actually, is to see all these animals and to see their owners. And when I think about my dogs, I've had a number of dogs in my adult life. Two of them were, the first two were greyhounds. One was a huge big greyhound called Winston. He went everywhere with me, and people knew me because they knew my dog. And then he passed away, I think, at the age of about like 12. And then next after that came Bello, who was another very gentle greyhound. He was rescued from the racetrack. And at that time, I had a daughter. She was very little, and he was this powerful, powerful dog, but sweet as could be. And she would like grab his leash, and she would like walk him. Now, this big dog could easily run away from him, from her, but he never did. He was just always like, she would like literally lead him by his leash, and he would just gently follow him. It was just an amazing dog. And unfortunately, he passed away at an age that was way too early. And then we didn't have a dog for at least a year or so. And then one day, I was driving with my daughter and we passed by a shelter. And I said to my daughter, who was like 3, do you want to look at dogs? She was like, yes, I do want to look at dogs. So we went to the shelter and there were a lot of dogs. Most of them were barking at us. And there was this one black mixed breed dog, and he was just looking at us and he was just like wagging his tail. He wasn't barking, he was just wagging his tail at us. So we asked about him. Long story short, that was Hudson. That was the dog in the picture that you saw. And so we ended up taking him home, and he was just, yep, that's him. And he really was an amazing dog. And he was amazing in many, many ways. At some point in time, we had a real rough year in our lives, and he was just really the support for my daughter. He was a big dog. She could snuggle up with him. And at night, what he did, he used to climb up the stairs. And I have an old house with very steep stairs, but he would climb up there. And then my daughter would go first in the bed. She was around 10 around that time. And then she would lift the blankets and he would hop in the bed next to her, lay next to her. He had his own pillow, put his head down on his pillow, and then I would tuck them both in. And I was just like, that was an evening routine every night. So he was just really an amazing support for her. And he also, of course, he was a Labrador mix, and he got into typical Labrador trouble a couple times where he ended up eating things that shouldn't have been eaten. So he ended up, our amazing team at the Animal Medical Center really truly saved him a couple times. And he went through a couple abdominal surgeries. He was in the ICU for a week or so here and there. But hey, he just kept pulling through, and he really became very well known around AMC. He was really used in a lot of like photo ops. If you happen to visit AMC and you look at the like services slide, he is still on the slide that is about ophthalmology. So he was always good for like a picture. If there was a resident that had a little project, he was always happy to participate as long as he got a treat. And he was quite happy, or treat, or just some petting. That was good enough. So, as the years went by, he got older and older. And, you typically think about a Labrador and living 10 to 14 years, something like that. And of course, every dog is different. Some of them we lose way too early, and some of them outlive you quite a bit. And Hudson has had his ups and downs, but he lived to be 12, and then he lived to be 13, and then he lived to be 14. And all along, I kept thinking, wow, he's really starting to beat the odds. And then he lived to be 15, and he had some setbacks. So in his elderly years, he would kind of like slowly. I had two dogs. I have a little miniature poodle as well. So it was usually for a while where the miniature poodle was way up front. So my left hand was like stretched out front with the miniature poodle, and my right hand was kind of like stretched back because he was really kind of taking his time, and that was okay because he also had to take time to say hi to everybody, and everybody knew him. He loved coming to the AMC because everybody knew him, everybody was ready to pet him. So it was sometime this spring when he was 16, when all of a sudden he had a turn for the worse, and that's when I had to say goodbye to him. And it was, of course, very, very difficult. My little poodle still misses him, but I mean, if think back, he was with us for 15 years. He was really, truly an amazing dog, and what a significant he has had in our lives. It was really quite amazing. So that is Hudson's story. Nothing unique. I'm sure a lot of you have the exact same stories, but yeah, he was an amazing dog. That was my Hudson boy.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vanderwoord. And I'm so privileged that I did have a chance to get to know Hudson because he'd hang out in your office and just such a good boy, the sweetest boy who lived such a beautiful life in your care and with your family. So thank you for sharing his story with us tonight. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Craig Grossi. Raised in the Virginia suburbs of Washington, D.C., Craig is a Marine Corps veteran, best-selling author of Craig and Fred and Second Chances, recipient of the Purple Heart, Georgetown University graduate, and a professional public speaker. He also co-hosts the Stubbornly Positive podcast with his wife, Nora. In 2010, Craig served as a member of an elite team of U.S. Marines in Sangin, Afghanistan. Sangin was his most dangerous assignment and not the place he thought he would meet an incredible stray dog he named Fred. With some proper scheming and a lot of help, Craig was able to send Fred home to his family while he completed his tour in Afghanistan. In 2017, Craig's first book, Craig and Fred, was published to great acclaim, followed by his second book, Second Chances, which was also a bestseller. Fred stood by Craig as the best boy at Craig's wedding to Nora Parkington, and together they traveled the country sharing their inspiring story. In 2018, AMC had the honor of recognizing Craig and Fred at our Top Dog event, and they remained a cherished part of the AMC family. In 2023, when Fred was diagnosed with an aggressive form of cancer, AMC's dedicated team of veterinarians and specialists provided comprehensive and compassionate care, working closely with Craig and Nora to offer the best possible treatment and support through Fred's illness. After saying a heartfelt goodbye to Fred last November, Craig and Nora have remained committed to sharing Fred's message of stubborn positivity through what they're now calling his legacy chapter. The beautiful bond between Craig and Fred continues to inspire so many, and we are grateful to have Craig with us this evening. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Craig Grossi.
All right. Everybody hear me okay? First of all, thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Kimberly, for putting this together. And thank you to AMC for the just honor after honor after honor just of throughout Fred's life. 2018 was such a beautiful, beautiful memory at the gala, and you guys just over the years, especially last year with the diagnosis, just stepped up again and again and again for us and for Fred, and we're eternally just bonded to you. You're never going to get rid of us. And thank you to everybody that's here tonight. I can't promise I'm not going to cry, but I'll try. You're honoring your pets just by signing up for something like this, and that's beautiful. And I'm already crying. So here we go. So I'm like Michelle said, I'm a former Marine, and I'm an author. I've written 2 books, and but it was a long journey to where I am today, and I wouldn't have taken a single step in this direction if it hadn't been for Fred. And it just makes, everything that happened and how we came together all the more remarkable. And I was in Helmand Province in 2010. I was a part of I was an intelligence collector, but I was embedded with a bunch of recon Marines, which are like our most highly trained, most elite fighters. They don't send them anywhere friendly. They don't send them anywhere nice. And Sangin, Afghanistan was no exception. We were expecting the absolute worst. Every brief that we got beforehand, from analysts and people who had been monitoring the area and other units that had been there, was just, be prepared to lose lots of your friends. Like, it's, be prepared to see lots and lots of fighting, and just the picture was very, very grim. And so you can imagine what was, going through our minds as we prepared for that. And one of the unique things was the way we were operating was there was no base, there was no established, kind of foothold in the area. We inserted out of helicopters in the middle of the night, and we had identified a couple of compounds that looked kind of like they're basically homes, but it's just a compound. It's like 4 tall mud walls with a couple of dwellings on the inside, and we wanted some that had some distance and had, would be safe for us to occupy. So we inserted in these helicopters in the middle of the night, and we patrol for a couple of hours until we find one of these compounds that we identified as being ideal for us. And we come in and we spend all night filling sandbags and trying to fortify the walls in a couple of rooftop positions of this compound. And because we know when the sun comes up that first morning that, we're going to be in for it. They're going to be coming for us with everything they have, and everything basically that the analysts and all the experts had predicted came true that first morning. That the Taliban came at us with everything that they had, from really just from a place that nobody had really seen in the course of the conflict. And we held our ground for that first week. It was basically sun up to sundown, just fighting for that little piece of earth. And I remembered in those first 7 days or so, every once in a while there'd be a break in the fighting, and I would look around. I'd be getting some water. I'd be talking to my fellow Marines, and I'd look around and I'd see this little dog, this little white dog, just like trotting across the battlefield or trotting across our compound like he was, like he was at the Westminster Kennel Club. Like he was so different from everything around him, just in the way he carried himself, and then also just from the other dogs that we saw. Like he was always by himself. He was kind of a loner, and he was always out during the day, which is kind of unheard of for dogs. I mean, it's hot. It gets pretty hot over there in the desert, and so most of the dogs, they don't really start moving around until the sun goes down, because it's cooler, and they come out and they roam around in packs, and they're pretty, unfortunately, pretty unapproachable, and they're in a bad way. And here was this dog who was like, seemed to have kind of figured out his own way of life, his own way of approaching, his life. And it was so fascinating. And all of us would kind of, just looking at him would make us smile. And then after that first week, we had kind of established that we weren't to be messed with. We weren't going anywhere, and we had held that piece of ground. And so the Taliban started to give us a little space and kind of break off from us. And I started to do what I had actually come there to do, which was to write reports, kind of try to shape the battlefield and get information back to decision makers and all that. And I sit down, and I finally have all these notes I got to fill out and try to get reports back. And I pull out my computer, and I sit down, and I see this. As soon as I sit down and I'm ready to go, I see this little tail periscope across the top of my little laptop, and I'm like, there's that dog again. you know, and I couldn't resist him. And I put my computer down, grabbed some beef jerky from my rucksack, and before I even really thought it through, I was walking towards him because I had figured out he had like a little clump of bushes that he was sleeping in, and he seemed to have like stuff where he had buried little pieces, scraps of food or whatever he had found. And I was like, I'm just gonna get a look at him. I'm just gonna get a better look at him. That's all. And this is always a quick note. I never had a dog before. Growing up, I always wanted one, and I tried very hard. I campaigned every night after dinner for a dog, and I always got blockaded by the fatherly, line of, you can't have a dog because I'll end up doing everything. I'll end up walking him. I'll end up having to do everything. I could never get past that. So I think it was the kid in me that always wanted a dog that kind of took over in my head. And I'm walking up towards him, and I got about, maybe 10 feet from him, and I got a good look at him, and I started to turn around. I started to make assumptions, as we all do, because he was covered in bugs. I could see his ribs, his fur was matted, and he wasn't a puppy. He was definitely like at least a year old, maybe older, and that's more than enough time for a dog in a place like that to have become, a product of its environment, mistrustful, and I didn't want to get bit. I didn't want to stress the dog out, and we weren't even supposed to approach the stray dogs, which was a rule that I thought was worth breaking. And so anyway, I start getting a little closer, and I just, now I see bugs all over his chest, and I'm just like, all right, never mind. I'm gonna leave him alone. But then I hear this noise, and it's this faint little thump, 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 and it's coming from the dog, and I see this little dust, a little bit of dust coming up from behind him, and it's like, it's his tail. And I couldn't believe it. He was wagging his tail, and this dog had nothing to wag his tail about. He was hot and hungry and covered in bugs, and clearly never really been taken care of before. And here he was, still holding on to some hope, some kind of a connection to the world, and he saw it in me and hoped for it in me, and that just blew me away. And so I got a little closer, and I held the jerky out, with my hand, and was like, kind of talking to him a little bit. And he stood up, and he surprised me again, just as gently as he could. He reached up with his front teeth and took the jerky and chewed it very politely. And like, I was just waiting for him to, he could have only surprised me more if he had pulled out a napkin and wiped his mouth. Like, that would have been the only thing he could have done. That surprised me more. And, the whole, everything, I'm preaching to the choir here. We all know what our dogs do, but I'm here to tell you that even in an environment like that, just being with a dog can make it melt away. Because in those moments, I wasn't a Marine thousands of miles from home. I was just a kid with a dog, and it was probably 2 minutes, maybe 20 minutes. Who cares? It was just this moment of with him, and I kind of took a breath and was like, all right, wait, I don't want to push it. This is a really cool dog. That was a really cool moment, but I don't want to, take it too far. So I stood up, started walking back to my stuff, and I felt this little poke at my heel, and it was Fred. It wasn't Fred yet. It was about to be Fred. And he's poking at my heel, following me back, and he's had this little look in his eye. And one of my friends said, hey, looks like you made a friend. And I didn't hear him correctly. I thought he said, hey, looks like a Fred. And so I said, yeah, sure. Okay, we'll call him Fred. And I was like, yeah, okay, let's go Fred. And I just named my first dog. I had no idea. And so he comes back, and, I give him some more jerky. We had bottled water. I poured him some water and watched him drink like a whole bowl of water. And that was a magical moment, because it was probably, the first real clean water he'd ever had. There was a river not far from there, so it wasn't like it was, but it was just a really special moment. And we got all the bugs off of him, and as soon as he was bug free, he found my sleeping bag and made a little bed out of it and passed out in my sleeping bag, and that was so sweet. And so, spoiler alert, Fred makes it home, right? We know that the journey, that was just the beginning. But that the biggest kind of step in that journey was getting him on a helicopter, because we weren't going to be staying in that place the whole time. So we were only there for about a month and a half. I can't really remember the exact number of weeks we were there, but it was a long time. And Fred really integrated into our whole unit, was coming on patrol with us, was just instantly kind of clearly supposed to have been there. And we all fell in love with him, and everybody was like, you got to get him out, you got to get him out. And it was a big risk. And so I said, Fred, if you follow me to this helicopter, if you're not scared off by the rotor wash and the dust and the chaos of a combat extract, like, I mean, they have to train military working dogs to run up the back of a running helicopter that's barely off the ground, and I thought, no way, this is an amazing dog, but there's probably at best 50-50 chance that he'll actually move with us towards that helicopter. But I said to myself, if he does, then I'll know this is the risk I'm supposed to take, and that there's something bigger at stake here. And sure enough, that helicopter comes in, and I'm running towards it through the dust and the chaos, and I feel that poke again. I feel that little poke right at my heel, and it was Fred. And I had an empty duffel bag in my pocket, and my buddy came up from behind me. He was an amazing Marine, amazing person, and all he said was, "We're doing this." And he grabbed Fred by the scruff, and we stuffed him in it and zipped it closed, and we just carried it up the back of the helicopter, tried to make it look heavy, because right away, the potential for it to go south started right there, because if anybody on that flight crew saw us with a dog, it could unravel the whole thing. So Fred flew in a helicopter before he ever went in a car ride or anything like that, and get him back to base, and the rest of his journey is just as remarkable as that helicopter extract. And I come home. Fred beat me home by like 4 months. Okay, and so he was home, within less than a month after kind of hiding him in plain sight on our American base. And guess who took care of him until, this is one of my favorite parts, who took care of him until I got home? It was my dad. As you can probably imagine, the way life works out, his prediction was not wrong, and my dad took care of him for 4 months until I come home. And coming home, I got out of the Marines within a couple of weeks of getting home from Afghanistan, and I started checking boxes. I thought, the more distance I can put between me and everything I saw and did in Afghanistan, the better I'll be. And one of the things I was convinced I shouldn't do, the last thing I thought I should do, was talk about it. But then I had this dog, and I'm walking him around my neighborhood in Washington, D.C. after work or before work or whenever, and everywhere we would go, people wanted to know what kind of dog he was, because he was so handsome and so special and magnetic, and everything he was on the battlefield in Afghanistan, he was back at home in the States. And people just kept, asking, what kind of dog is he? What kind of dog is he? And there was only so many fake breeds I could come up with, and to try to end the conversation as fast as I could. My favorite one was pocket wolf. I'd say, oh, he's a pocket wolf, and that would kind of end the conversation right there. But one day, somebody asked me what kind of dog he was, and something just kind of clicked, and I just let it fly. I let the story go. And I think it had a lot to do with just me not being okay. I was really good at pretending I was okay, but I wasn't. And I just opened up to this total stranger at the dog park. And we all know, as dog owners, the dog park is a magical place where our dogs come and be dogs, but where something about it with people, we really let our walls down. And Fred facilitated that by getting me out, getting me into the community, and telling this story. And on the walk back after that first time, I just launched into this whole story. I just started to cry, because I felt, for the first time since coming home, like, wait a minute, like, this, I'm doing it wrong. Not opening up, not being vulnerable, and trying to keep this stuff bottled up isn't what I'm supposed to do, and it's not working. And so from then on, anytime anybody asked what kind of dog Fred was, they got the story. And I'm sure I made a lot of people late for stuff, because they just asked this casual, small talky question, and I launched into this whole story about Fred and where he's from, and it grew and it grew and it grew. And my wife came into my life, and she, really just lit a fire under the whole thing, and saw what I was doing and saw what I wanted to do. I wanted to share the story in as many ways and as big of ways as possible. And it turned into the first book, and now the second book, and our podcast and speaking events. And all that is to say is this whole journey with Freddie started with those first moments when he demonstrated to me that being vulnerable and making the vulnerable choice requires more strength than it does to keep it bottled up. And that was when he wagged his tail, because that was opening him up to the world. That was him opening up to me and to the risk of being hurt. And it's the only thing we can think to call it is this idea of stubborn positivity, because it's just all the bad, all the good of being stubborn, into just being positive. And it's about not ignoring your problems, not just saying everything's fine. It's about facing your problems and finding a reason to wag your tail in that problem. And it makes everything make a little bit more sense. And Fred really showed me how to do that again and again and again. And now that he's not here physically, he's showing us that in a different way. And it's not this relationship isn't over. And that's the same for all of us with our dogs, because it's just like us. We don't control where and when we come into the world, and we don't control where and when we go. And it's the same with our dogs. And it doesn't make it less painful. It doesn't make it less frustrating and all the emotions, but there's a reason. And Fred is showing us that all the time with this new journey in grief. And what I've realized in the first couple of months since saying goodbye to Fred physically is that grief is this monster that we have to wrestle, and we're not always going to win, but we'll always, it's ours. And everybody has their own journey with it. And the key thing to remember is it's your grief, and it's not going anywhere. So you might as well learn how to wag your tail in it. And Fred's, I could talk all night about how Fred is showing me how to do that again and again since the months that he's been gone. But one of the things that we've picked up from one of our friends who's a therapist and was actually the first person I opened up to with the story about Fred is that life-changing love is a life-changing loss. And you don't have to try to explain it or justify it or push it away. Like, you can just accept that life-changing love, all those memories, all that impact, all the events that they were there by your side through, that is beautiful. And it's the reason it hurts so bad is because it was so beautiful. And it's that connection never goes away, and it just evolves. And we're seeing that again and again with this journey with Fred and this new legacy chapter. And we're still very much living it, but it's doing things like this and talking about Fred is a privilege, and I'm grateful for the opportunity. And I've probably gone way too long, but I'll talk about dogs and I'll talk about Fred all day. And I'm so honored to have been a small part of tonight. Thank you, everybody, for the opportunity.
Oh, thank you so much, Craig, for your beautiful words. Does Nora want to say hello? Just give her a minute. I could listen to you speak all day. You, the two of you, I just have to tell everyone, they're just the warmest. They really are how they seem, and just they're very special to us. I mean, all of you are special to us at AMC, but just again, we are grateful for all that you do and for trusting us with Fred's care. He was just a wonderful dog. I also had the chance to meet him and see him just be a brave dog and see you all together. But thank you again. I know this isn't an easy talk to give, but your words were beautiful as always. And, you just so beautifully captured the bond between humans and their pets and the strength of stubborn positivity. So we're so grateful to have you here with us this evening again. Thank you so much. And now I really need it. I'd like to introduce Jamie Cohen, AMC's veterinary social worker. Jamie provides support and counseling to our clients and leads our pet loss support program, helping those who've lost a dear companion find comfort and understanding. Jamie joined AMC this past summer and has already made a significant impact. We're fortunate to have her at AMC and very grateful to have her here with us tonight. Please welcome Jamie Cohen.
Hi. Thank you, Michelle and Kimberly. First of all, I just want to say thank you, Michelle and Kimberly, for putting this beautiful event together. Dr. Woerdt and Craig, thank you for sharing your stories about Hudson and Fred. And I was moved by the extraordinary story, Craig, that you shared. Just a few small words. So good evening and thank you all for being here. I am honored to share this special evening with you and to be surrounded by so much love in this space as we honor your beloved pets and your special bonds with them. You all know all too well the pain and heartache of losing your beloved animal companion, the sharp pain of longing for one more moment with your pet, the powerful urge to somehow go back in time and change everything. You would truly do anything just to see your pet once more. The longing to have your pet's physical presence, to hold, to be near. The emptiness one feels in one's heart. The loss of a part of oneself. What does it mean to be a pet parent without your pet? Feeling a loss of purpose in no longer having your pet to care for. One of the most common experiences I see is the mental gymnastics that pet owners play, thinking of all of the what ifs, should haves, and could haves. The guilt, beating oneself up, blaming oneself, often for things completely out of one's control. Lots of clients will ask me, what can they do to navigate this difficult time? One of the most important things one can do is show oneself self-compassion. It is bad enough you are going through this loss, but you make it harder for yourself by putting yourself down. Even for circumstances where you wish you made a different choice, if you actually made a mistake, learn from it instead of punishing yourself. If your friend was going through this, what would you say? Would you be so harsh with your words? Would your pet want you to be berating yourself like this? If you can show yourself kindness, it is key to helping you move forward in your grief instead of getting stuck in your grief. For many pets, your pets are members of the family, and the grief over their loss can feel more intense than any other loss of a human. It is only natural to confide in others in an effort to get the support you need. But what unfortunately comes up all too often is that when clients try to open up to others in their life about what they are going through, their experience is misunderstood and or minimized by the people they expected to be there for them. For all of those of you who have felt invalidated, if nothing else, I hope you all remember this moment where 265 pet parents united together in their love for their pets. And I hope it reminds you that you're not alone. Now I would like to invite you all to get your candles if you wish to, and also to change, if you want to, your view to gallery so you can see everyone. So now I would like to invite you all to join in a candle lighting ceremony to honor the memories of our animal companions. And so if you can all get your candles together, and if you wish to, you can dim your lights. And I was gonna wait and see that everyone, if anyone, I see some people moving, so I'm thinking they're getting their candles ready. And I'm gonna actually light mine right now. It looks like we've got people with their candles. All right. So it looks like people are ready. I'm going to begin reading a poem. It's called My Forever Pet by Susan Taylor, and then we'll take a few moments for quiet reflection, and then we'll start the slideshow. So, my forever pet. There's something missing in my home. I feel it day and night. I know it will take time and strength before things feel quite right. But just for now, I need to mourn. My heart, it needs to mend. Though some may say it's just a pet, I know I've lost a friend. You've brought such laughter to my home and richness to my days, a constant friend through joy or loss with gentle, loving ways. Companion, friend, and confidant, a friend I won't forget. You'll live forever in my heart, my sweet forever pet.
Thank you, Jamie, for your comforting words and the invaluable support you provide. I also want to extend my thanks to Dr. Alexandra Woerdt and Craig Grossi for being with us tonight and for speaking so beautifully. Thank you also to Kimberly Young for all of her work in helping to organize this very special event. And finally, to all of you, thank you so much for being with us. We know that losing a pet can be an overwhelming experience filled with emotions that are difficult to navigate. And we're so grateful that you chose to share this evening with us. We'll now conclude with our pet memorial slideshow. you.